Okay, let's dive into this, because today we're tackling an absolute monster that literally haunts almost every student, researcher, and, well, anyone trying to learn something new. I'm talking about the overwhelming, never-ending academic reading list. We are breaking down a seriously brilliant system developed by Charlotte Freza. She's a computational neuroscience PhD student who actually cracked the code on how to consume massive amounts of complex literature without burning out. We've distilled her exact methodology into this explainer, so you can literally apply it today. So why exactly does your reading list ruin your weekends? Look, if you're like most of us trying to keep up with dense literature, you've definitely got that giant to-be-read pile. And you know the lie we tell ourselves, right? Oh, I'll just catch up on Saturday. Sure. But then Saturday actually rolls around, the guilt sets in, the anxiety completely peaks, and because that pile is just impossibly high, you freeze. You read absolutely nothing. Your whole weekend is ruined by this dark, looming shadow of unread PDFs. Well, today, we are going to completely cure that guilt. To get those weekends back, we've got a super actionable roadmap. We're going to cover 1, the unread paper pile, 2, how to skim effectively, 3, remembering what you read, 4, mapping the bigger context, and 5, building better reading habits. Let's get right into it. Part 1, the unread paper pile. Let's look at this whole literature overload problem that we all, unfortunately, know too well. This struggle, it's incredibly real. Charlotte Freza actually said that during the first years of her PhD, she assumed she would be reading all these papers in the weekends and ended up not reading anything. Honestly, it's so validating to hear that even a computational neuroscience PhD student hit this wall and had to engineer a way out of burnout. Trust me, you are not alone here. Okay, so to fix this, we need a solid framework. Our source material gives us what we'll call the rule of 3 for literature reviews. First up, you've got to read fast, just to survive the sheer volume of publications dropping every day. Second, you have to actually remember what you read, because let's face it, speed means absolutely nothing if your retention is 0. And third, you need to slot those individual papers into the bigger context of the scientific world. Basically, everything we're about to cover is precision engineered to hit these 3 exact goals. Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds. How to skim effectively. This is where we start reading faster. All right, here is your tactical 30-minute skimming strike to aggressively triage any paper. Step 1, hit the title and the abstract. This is a super rapid go or no-go decision. Like, is this paper actually worth your time? Because a lot of them sound relevant but totally aren't. Step 2, if it passes that test, jump immediately to the figures. And step 3, go straight to the discussion. Notice what's missing? Yeah, you are entirely skipping that deep dive into the introduction, ignoring those massive blocks of text and the results, and bypassing the granular methods, at least for this initial 30-minute pass. Now, you might be wondering why we skip straight to the figures. Well, it's actually for a really surprising reason. If you already have some baseline knowledge in your field, you can look at those figures and instantly grasp about 95% of what's written in the paper. Seriously, that visual data, that is exactly where the core value lives. And right after the figures, you jump straight to the discussion. Why? Because the discussion is honestly the most interesting part of the whole thing. It's got the pushback. It has what the reviewers thought, the critical limitations of the study, and the ideas for future research. This is an absolute goldmine. Reading the discussion is what sparks those aha moments in your own mind, which can directly inspire your very own future papers or projects. Moving on to part 3. Remembering what you read. Now, what's really interesting about this is that rapid skimming is entirely useless if the info just evaporates from your brain 5 minutes later, right? To actually lock in that memory, you need a totally frictionless workflow. If you're using an app like Notion, think of it as a 3-part machine. First, use a web plugin to instantly link the paper straight into a dedicated database. Second, as you're reading, snap screenshots of those highly valuable figures we just talked about, the ones you might want to reproduce or cite later, and just drop them right into your page. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, use the mobile app to record audio notes. Let's pause on that last point for a second, because we really need to understand the psychological why here. Why voice memos instead of just typing? Well, when you type notes while reading, your brain kind of just slips into autopilot. You end up passively retyping or basically copy-pasting exactly what you just read. But when you force yourself to speak out loud into a voice memo, you can't just copy. You have to synthesize the information. Voice memos force critical interpretation. You literally have to explain to yourself what you liked, what you disliked, and what the whole thing actually means. It forces a way deeper level of active understanding. Okay, so once you've captured your own thoughts, we need to zoom out a bit. Part 4, mapping the bigger context. Let's look at the bigger picture. To do this, the source highly recommends a tool called Research Rabbit to build what are known as citation trees. Basically, a citation tree is this visual tree-like overview that shows you exactly how papers in a specific topic connect to each other. You can organize it by year or by how they cite one another. And guys, this is incredibly powerful. Instead of looking at a single paper in a vacuum, you instantly see the whole ecosystem. You understand exactly where your paper fits within the wider scientific world, and it perfectly points you to the natural next thing you should read. All right, let's bring it back down to daily life. Part 5, building better reading habits. Because at the end of the day, all the fancy tools in the world won't save you if you don't actually sit down and use them consistently. So the crucial point is managing the chaos before it even starts. You absolutely must use a reference manager. Zotero is highly recommended here, plus it's free. You just use a web plugin to auto-import the paper, but then, and this is key, you apply a super simple color-coded triage system. Red means priority, must read. Orange means, might read it if I have time. Green means done. This instant visual organization instantly clears the mental clutter. It stops you from feeling totally overwhelmed the second you open your library. Now, this next habit is honestly maybe the most important thing to take away from this explainer. You need to establish a dedicated, set reading time every single day. This actually comes from the tiny habits methodology. The goal here? Consistency over intensity. You are not scheduling a grueling 3-hour marathon block. No way. You are just carving out a small, non-negotiable window every day to read a handful of pages. The secret here is the incredibly satisfying compounding mass of that tiny habit. Think about it. If you dedicate time every single day to read just 5 to 10 pages, which is a super small, easily doable amount, by the end of the week, you'll have effortlessly consumed 70 pages or more. This completely eliminates the need to cram. It completely destroys the stress of trying to power through 70 pages in one sitting on a Saturday afternoon. Just slow and steady compounding. It's the ultimate cure for weekend burnout. So what does this all mean for you? How will you reorganize your to-be-read pile today? You literally have the exact blueprint now. You know how to triage with color codes, how to skim those figures in 30 minutes flat, how to force deep critical thinking with voice memos, and how to completely conquer the sheer volume by just reading 5 pages a day. The tools are right there in front of you. It is time to stop feeling guilty, start skimming strategically, and finally take back your weekends. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly recommend setting up those Zotero and Notion systems literally the minute this ends. Catch you on the next one.